episode of the podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'm here with two special guests, two of my best friends, Bishop Mariah. How you guys? Oh. How you guys doing today?
I'm chill.
We're doing good, thank you.
Y'all can keep it.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
but alright, cool.
So like, how's life for you two?
How is our life?
How's our life going right now?
Life's tough, man.
We are in a testing season, as you call it. We're in the testing phase.
A lot of ups and downs, man.
With my husband being a travel contractor.
Yes, travel contracting is something.
Away from the home.
So yeah, you guys, you got a baby now. So how's that been?
You learn a lot about yourself.
You think your parents know what they doing, but they don't know what they doing. They don't know what they doing. We don't know what we doing. Tell you the truth, we just been dependent on the Holy Spirit and the challenges as they come, growing from them and learning from them.
I would say it's very humbling. You definitely learn, like, for me, it's been humbling of, before you have a child, you think you'll do something a certain way, and then you have a child and you're like, we're all surviving.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts. I'm in survival mode. You got kids?
No kid.
Yeah.
You know that.
I know. I'm just saying for the sake of the interview.
I have no kids.
He said, let me tell everyone.
I am kid free. I'm working. I just graduated high school, so yeah, I'm just now stepping into adulthood. I'm on probably the first step of adulthood. So,
Yeah, I say that first up. Yeah, you doing good.
yeah. So we're gonna get right into this interview. I feel like this is gonna be very, very powerful. The first question I want to ask. Who wants to go first?
You want me to go first? Okay.
All right. So Mariah, where were you raised at?
A lot of different places. I was born in Montana. I mostly grew up in Colorado. I graduated high school in Arizona, and then from there I lived in Utah, New Mexico, Texas, Alaska, New Jersey, until I got here. So I feel like, not everyone would agree, but to be honest, I feel like when you're in your 20s, you're still growing up. But yeah, anyway, so mostly Colorado is where I grew up. I did a lot of bouncing around.
So was it hard to make? Was it hard to get firm, get rooted into a certain city or state, make friends? Keep up with them. Was it that hard?
That's the interesting part. So I did grow up with a relationship with God. I know one of those people that knew Jesus my whole life. So I'm very thankful for my parents for that foundation. And my parents also very much instilled in us that friends will come and go, but your siblings are forever. So I've always been very close with my sisters. And I've been very blessed with, when I would move, I would get one close friend. And that person, I still have friends that I've known since I was in kindergarten, in first grade. So I was still, the Lord moved us around, but I'm blessed with having long-term close relationships.
Amen. What about you, Bishop?
What was the question?
Where were you raised?
Where was I raised? I was raised here in Savannah, and I was raised in Houston, Texas. Shout out to Houston. But yeah, man, I was raised here. I was a hoodlum, I would say. And I used to I don't know. My mother's a lawyer, right? I had no reason to be a hoodlum. But you know that suburban dude that wants to fit in so bad, he tries to be hood? Well, that was me. And that is just a stupid dude. It's a dumb dude. I'm not even gonna lie. And so I was trying to do that, man. And it got to the point where I almost became that way because I put myself in those types of environments where you want to belong so bad, you almost dip into whatever sin is going on just to get a sense of belonging. And so I would hang with the hoodlums, and we would be fighting and jumping, and I got kicked out of school twice. I don't even know if I'm supposed to be saying this.
No, you gotta give him. Yeah.
But yeah, I got kicked out of school twice. Got suspended. Lost some friends. And then my Houston stint, I would say at 8th grade, I got so bad with my mama that she was like, it's either me or you. I was like, it's supposed to be us. What you mean? You had me. What? But I didn't understand that. And so she said, it's either me or you. I fought my stepdad. And then I got sent to Houston with my real dad. And then that's where I kind of grew up, man. I kind of had all of the learning lessons that a child should go through, all of the discipline a child should have, all the structure a child should get. That's kind of what took place over there. We can go deeper if we talking about, spirituality and Christianity, but right now that's just like the broad perspective.
Where you grew up.
Yeah, where I grew up.
So, so what some things from your childhood, led to, maybe you wanted to fit in, maybe was there a void that you were trying to search for?
Okay, we getting there now. All right, bet. So we'll take this back to my little abusive stint in Savannah. So as a kid, my folks got divorced. And a lot of us have parents that divorce or
You just got divorced at a young age.
or split up. Yeah, they got divorced around like when I was 6 years old. So from there, if we talking about spirits and Christianity, I would say rejection set in. And whenever you get a spirit of rejection in you like that, you have to find some way to be enough. Oh. Get them cheeses. A rejection real quick. So I need to find some way to be enough. And how I did it was I grabbed another spirit called anger, and I used it. I thought it was me, so I identified like as a hothead. I thought I was naturally a hothead, but really I was trying to compensate for the void I was feeling from loss of my father. And I blame myself for him leaving, right? You don't blame like that. You don't blame the devil. You don't know he exists. So you got to find something to blame for the cause that's taking place, because I'm not in control of it. Let me make an excuse as to why I'm not in control. And so that's where blame comes in. But from that anger, I used to navigate in it. I'd find myself in like situations where it didn't even require it, but it's all I knew how to operate in. Does that make sense? I didn't have like a peace mechanism. I didn't have no peace. I had anger because I had rejection. And when I didn't want to feel rejected, I grabbed anger. Now, another thing rejection does is it causes you to seek approval in anything and everything around you, because you don't feel enough by yourself. So this is where the gang stuff, or I wouldn't say gang, but the hoodlum stuff came in, because I needed approval. And since I was in that environment, I was going to conform to it to be approved by it.
Right. I got you.
Y'all with me? So I conformed to it. I got approved, and it got so bad to where, since I was conforming to spirits that I didn't grow up with, I was conforming to like these guys like money. Money was their god, like chase the bag, you feel me? And women was another thing. So I wanted to be praised by these guys, so I would conform to the things, their gods, in a sense, their idols. And so their idols were money and women. And so I started to be a connoisseur of women, and lust came into my life. And lust gave me like almost a little bit of purpose. I was collecting women. I was getting like whoever I wanted, and it made me feel enough. And that's the only reason I used it. So it was pretty selfish. I used it for my own gain. Meanwhile, I was breaking like hearts, I would say. I got the Lord gave me my wife now, so I'm grateful I'm not stuck in that realm anymore of being enough. But that's kind of I would say that is what my initial emptiness was, and those are the things that I used to fill it temporarily. Did that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Does that make sense, y'all? Okay, so what he talked about, about his abuse, right? Abuse. Me and my dad, my dad didn't abuse me, but he disciplined me enough to it felt like abuse, I would say. And only reason that was because my dad's dad did that to him, and my dad's dad did that to him, and then so all it goes down. Like, so it's a hurt that's passed on from generation to generations. My dad grew up hating his father. I grew up hating my dad until I was probably like, maybe 10 or 11, because my dad, he will discipline me, but he would discipline me publicly so like everyone can see it. That was embarrassing for me because my friends, my peers could see me getting whoopings in class in front of yeah. And so that's why, and until I confronted that, if I didn't confront that, I would still hate my dad to that day, because I have the knowledge that hurt me. That I told my dad that it did hurt me, that I felt like you always beat me, and as a child you feel like your parents don't listen, they just listen to the teachers because you're so small and they're big, and they're adults and you're the child, right? So yes, it's very, very good to accept and acknowledge the pain. You got to stand in front of it and acknowledge it and confess it, that you have pain, because if you don't, it's going to eat you up inside. And thank God that I didn't let it eat me up inside. And thank God that my dad, I had to mature too, because a lot of that came from me doing silly stuff.
Yeah, no, I got beat in public too, bro.
Okay, can you say the question?
Okay, so what happened in your childhood that led you to your darkness?
Oh, that led me to my darkest place. Or my darkness.
Led you away from God, or like you said, you had a childhood.
Yeah.
You had a childhood.
So similar. I also had abusive households. My dad was verbally, physically very abusive. Ours was, if I have to, like, y'all are like, you got in trouble in public. If I got in trouble in public, that was like,
You get disciplined in public too?
you shouldn't have to be disciplined in public. Like, you have to sit down, shut up, don't say anything. You better not do anything, or it's worse.
Right.
If I have to do something in public, it's worse. Anyways, and so that abuse, I actually didn't quite realize. I really started realizing I was abused when I was like 18. Like, definitely in high school. And then you kind of toy with, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like a statistic. Right. And then, struggling with that identity. I don't know how far. Up here? Down here. The identity shift of, okay, now I'm acknowledging it, but not becoming stuck in now I'm an abused woman. So that was a big one for me. My dad was, again, abusive. I had daddy issues. My mom and I struggled with the relationship just because we were so similar, and my mom didn't know I was being abused. My older sister and I were, my younger sister was not. And so that also hurt my mom and I's relationship. What was weird, like, mine is just like a weird twisted one. My dad is definitely mentally sick. I was his favorite, and I was treated the worst. Like, mentally, that really messes up your brain, especially as a female. My dad and I were really close. So again, I didn't realize the way I was treated was like, Mariah, this is abuse, this isn't normal. Until I would go to a friend's house and be like, oh, you haven't been on a diet your whole life? Like, and it just like the comparison, I struggled for so long with comparison with my literal blood sister. With a comparison, she was just a little taller than me, and always skinnier than me, like 30 pounds, because I got muscle easier than her. There's always a comparison, how much smarter, how much, just all the things. And so through my adulthood, I struggled with building relationships with women because of the comparison. And my dad also cheated on my mom for 18 years of their marriage with her best friends. It was always with like a family member that, wait a minute, why aren't we seeing these people anymore? Well, it's because they cheated. So building relationships with women, also struggling with, okay, now you have a close friend, but you're always comparing yourself to them. And then thinking any man that's not hitting me, bruising me, screaming at me is better than my dad. Like, I don't know if y'all struggle with that, is like, as long as they're not here, as long as someone isn't at one, instead of like God renewing boundaries and right, thank you Jesus, now the Lord had to renew, I have something greater, like your mind can't even imagine, right? Because I thought, level 100, okay, if it's a step down from that, at least he's not hitting me. At least he's not screaming at me. At least he's not financially abusing me. Like, I'm just talking, like, my dad really has a stronghold, a demonic entity, and it's actually worse now than even when I was a child. And even so manipulating that you question yourself constantly. Like, you actually believe, you believe the lie. Like, just the mind games. And so growing up like that, my sisters and I, even my mom, struggled with communicating. Because you're in a household, you're not allowed to communicate. And then you go into the adult world, and you don't even know how. Like, communication was a huge struggle for me. And so I just thank God, because now I'm in the art world, that he's helped me. And that I have a husband that's very patient. But that was, again, going back to your question.
That was
Abusive household that was like extremely manipulative. This is a man everyone loves. A man in the community everyone falls in love with. That everyone is friends with. You are, like, he was my best friend. And then you realize this person, it's not just in the movies, someone's a bad guy. And, like, it's obvious. No, this is the most discreet. The family that looks perfect is actually the family that's the most broken. And so even there, that's another layer of taking off a mask. I grew up with, we put a mask on. You look perfect in front of people, period. You don't let people see your weakness. You never let anyone come to your house when it's messy. Never let anyone see what's really going on. Never let anyone, you better not ever talk about your siblings to someone else. Like, there was none of that. And so going into college and, taking psychology classes, and you start realizing, and you're like, oh my Lord, oh my God, I'm one of these people. I'm studying about. That's crazy. And then when I was in college, again, just like, ugly relationships I was in with men, one of my boyfriend, which is crazy, raped me. He knew I didn't want to have sex with him. It was his birthday, and I'm just being honest. He was talking about, like, you can take it out if it's inappropriate, right? You can definitely take it out. But we were drinking, and I blacked out which, by the way, now I am sober. I don't drink out or do drugs anymore. But I blacked out, and I woke up with him having sex with me. And so even that, just how it affects you, going into the way I was trained through my father, and then things that men did to me, having relationships, a relationship for 4 years where he was cheating on me, my next relationship when he raped me, like, all these things, it affects your man-pleasing, it affects your sex for approval, it affects your so many different things. And so the Lord truly had to renew and redefine for me what love is. And he's not done. I'm still, Bishop and I still have to work out so many things, but he has to he's redefining what love looks like and what true humility is. Like, he revealed, Mariah, you're walking in a false humility of belittling yourself for somebody else. And that's not what I called you to. True humility is, I'm showing you who and what I've given you and what boundaries that includes, and then you take that space boldly. So that was a lot.
So when did you cross Bishop's eye? I mean, or you and Bishop cross paths?
I know. We were in college. Do you want to give him something else?
Yeah, y'all get to see everything.
He might want to sit with us too, if that doesn't work. Bishop and I went to, so it was my sophomore year, Bishop's freshman year. He's a year younger than me. So when I was going to college, my freshman year, I had 2 scholarships I was interested in. One was in Salt Lake City at a 2-year college, and then one was at this military school. I was going to choose the military school until I got kicked out of the house at 18. My dad and I had a physical fight where we were hitting each other, and I had bruises all over. Police were involved. Anyways, I chosen that when I was like, okay, I don't want to become a dad. I'm not going to military school. And I went to Utah let me tell you, the Lord moved, because when he wants you to meet someone, you're going to meet someone,
Right.
period. Out of all the girls on the team, there were 3 of us that were not Mormon, and they didn't renew my contract, and the reason they said was because I didn't get along, like I didn't fit in with the girls. I was the only one with a job, anyways. But I know now it was the Lord, because then sophomore year I ended up going to school with Bishop, so New Mexico Military Institute, NIMI. I don't know if y'all have anyone that knows what that is, but it's in Roswell, New Mexico, middle of nowhere, military school.
Trash.
And really, we became best friends, and we stayed friends. We both had different relationships outside of NIMI, and the Lord brought us back together, ultimately.
So what was your first impression of him?
Because of our names, I don't know how, because it's like Powell and Cox. That was my maiden name. Oh no, it was our height. Because of our height, we were in the same troop. He stood right behind me. They must have had us like height. And I thought he was a little cocky, and he sang really, like, he kept singing over and over again. I was like, can you just choose a different song and not sing the same song every day? And I saw how he was with women, and I was like, I love him so much as my best friend. I would never want to be his girlfriend, because I see how he treats women.
So, your first impression of Mariah?
So coming into college, I was still like in the realm of lust, I would say, like complete on player mode. And it's because God, when God designed us, he designed us for peace, purpose, and fulfillment. And the problem is that we find temporary versions of this stuff in sin. And so I was in lust, which is a sin, and I had my peace, my purpose, and my fulfillment all bottled up, and it was all in sin. It was all in lust, and so I saw another girl I could bag. That's where I was, and I would sing normally just to cope, but apparently my voice was cool, so I would sing, and
Because you sing all the time.
she caught me singing.
That's just a part of who you are.
She caught me singing, and she would like smile, and I guess it annoyed her, but she would still like smile at me. Like she still liked it, like she didn't say stay away from me, you're weird, you creep. Like she was feeling it, but she didn't like how confident I was. And so we met, and she wanted me to sing more, actually. And so I would like, in a sense, try to bag her. That's what we would say, right? Bag her. Try to get her. And so I was turning on all the hoops. And then one day she was like, I want a Christian man. I was like, you know what? I'm finna be Christian then. Whatever it takes. So I wasn't Christian at all. But I went to the church, and I could play piano. And so I decided to bring her to church and let me play piano for her somehow, some way. And it was just because I was seeking my own pride. I was seeking my own glory. That if I could get her, it would make me feel enough again. If I didn't get her, and the challenge, basically it's a challenge, because if you lose her or don't get her, then you don't feel enough anymore. That's how lust works. So you either lose value or gain value. That's why it's such a temporary thing. And that's why you got to be a slave to it, because if you don't keep doing it, you're not enough. So it's purely selfish based. And she put me in the friend zone. And, but the way I see it is the devil's the prince of the power of the air. And how he wants us to operate is he wants us to approach in lust first. If you ever had a man approach you saying, what's good, mama, how you doing, I like the way you looking, he don't care nothing about your heart or what you've been through. He only sees your temple, he only sees your body, and he's approaching in lust, and it's completely selfish. That's just how it is. And sometimes I've experienced women mistake lust for love, and because they're getting a sense of attention that they may not have gotten from their parents, that they may not have gotten from school, they entertain it, and they settle for it almost. And so that's what I experienced. I experienced women settling for lust in me, so that they can feel something, because they don't know what love is. We only know love when we know God. Like, if we don't know God, we're trying to be enough in all the wrong areas. And so if you can get attention from multiple men, as close as I'm gonna get to love, I might as well entertain it. And then you continue to crave it. You get your value from the lust in guys. So you might dress a certain way to get lust from guys, or that's just what I've experienced from talking to women.
So what was your impression of me?
So my impression of Mariah. Let me see.
Your first impression.
I didn't have no impression. I thought you was fine, bro. I thought you were just the finest thing. You just looked so good to me. And she was warm. She was like a warm body. That's the best I got. But my first impression of like her heart or like her personality was she's a nerd. She's like a beautiful nerd. That was it. You're a beautiful nerd. And I mean, you still are till this day. You just nerd out on different things. Like, you like cute stuff. She likes fuzzy socks and Disney Channel movies. And
They don't make those good. They don't make good Disney Channel.
nah, bro, they do not, bro. Disney Channel lacking, bro. What else? Look at these slippers. She likes the fuzzy slippers and stuff. And she likes cuddling, even though she's tall. She like scrunching up in the chair. I know, bro. She's like.
Anyways, this part is good. You're good.
What else? Hold on, I'm not done yet. We keep going.
You said your impression. That was it. You didn't have to keep going.
What else you like, bro? And the thing is, I didn't know my wife, man. I didn't know my wife. I figured out who she was when I met her 7 years later, and we started dating and getting together. And my whole impression of her changed. Like, it's crazy how you think you know somebody, but when you're in a different mindset or personality, you don't really see them for who they are. You see them for the pleasure they can give you, if it's from lust. All right, I'm done. What's the next question?
I feel like were we supposed to do short answers and we said long answers?
Yeah, I mean,
He's like, yeah. He's gonna have to shorten some of these.
Yeah, edit this out, bruh.
I'm sorry, y'all, for the constant mic noise. I'm sorry. Look at Bishop. Look at him. What is you doing? What are you doing, my guy? Come on. Stop moving the mic. Come on. Just pay attention. Come on.
So, was it lust that brought y'all together?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, say it again. Say it.
No.
Ask the same question.
That's why I said we got different answers. I say no.
Yes.
It was yes for you that lust brought you.
Lust brought me to her. This is how God plays. He plays what we got.
No.
Lust brought me to her, and fantasy brought her to me.
No. What? No. Not at all.
What brought you to me?
Bishop's spirit man spoke and he forgot. That's what happened. He called me after having experience with God in a very special way, not the same as everybody. And he said, hey, if I was done pretty much, being with all these girls, I could see you as a wife. And that, I believe, his spirit man was speaking. I believe the spirit man was speaking when he said that. And so I was like, do you really mean that? And then long story short, we ended up dating probably a couple months later.
No, you skipped everything.
All right.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't want long answers. He's
Oh,
just
my
an
fault,
interview.
my fault.
So y'all dated through, y'all both came in here. You were both in darkness. You weren't.
Fact.
You saved. Y'all weren't saved.
I was saved.
You were saved.
I was saved. I was actually. That's what's again different answers. I had a relationship with the Lord.
We weren't saved.
I actually, when we started dating, I was like in close relationship. I didn't know about like I was going through
Spirits?
deliverance.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. You just.
But I was like
Elementary.
reading. I was actually I was elementary. Like I was reading my
Okay.
Bible myself, actually reading it, doing Bible study one-on-one with my girlfriend, like a girl that's a friend.
Yeah.
So I was definitely, and I knew the Lord told me don't have sex with a man. That's where when Bishop came into the picture, I gave in because of when I said I am man pleasing. I gave in because of my man pleasing. Bishop was a gateway to all my drug addictions fully manifesting, because that's a part of a generational curse. But I knew the God. That's why I said when we came to Savannah, I knew God was like, Mariah, stop. That's what God and I've known him for a long time, but I was that child that like, I know you, but I'm gonna go back and forth for years. I chose to be baptized when I got kicked out of the house in 2012. I got baptized in the Colorado River, and so I really went through these like ups, really close to God, far away, close, far, smoking weed every day, back to me and Jesus. It was always, my foundation was always, I know who Jesus is, right? And so that's why our answers are different, because I was, again, when we started dating, I was close with the Lord. It's, there's different definitions of close, but
Yeah. Big difference.
I think when you can read the Bible yourself, that's, the whole, I'm being real with you.
No,
I was led by the
you're
Spirit.
entitled to what you think. I mean, I personally think you can read the Bible yourself all you want, but if the Spirit ain't interpreting the words for you, and you don't understand. So when I got close with God was when I came into the understanding of demons, like spirits, like, oh, this is real. That's when it really hit me, like, okay, this is all real life, like the things that cause us to have to be enslaved to anger, fear, pride, what else? Name another one. Lust, right? We think that's who we are. We take on these spirits as identities and then assume that's who we are. That's when I was like, okay, so who's God? God is the spirit of peace. God is the Holy Spirit. God is the one that you got so much love, he doesn't get offended, like just self-control, discipline, all of that stuff comes from the Lord. Love comes from the Lord. And so once I realized that, I'm like, okay, bet this is the closeness, because I had like played around with God when I was in San Antonio. This is when I had called her and said, I feel like if I was ever to settle down, I could see myself doing it with you. And she hit me with the, you serious? And I'm thinking like, yeah, I could see myself doing it with you. And the next day, she had called me like 3 or 4 times, like, what's up? And I didn't realize that's where I basically said, hey, we dating. Because in her mind, it was on. Yeah. So that's how we started dating. And yeah. But either way.
So I'm gonna explain this question I'm about to ask. By when I was my last relationship in middle school was when I first got sexually active. One of the signs that I could see that I was in bondage with someone is that I was still kind of understand what sex really was, but when I started becoming in contact with this particular girl, my mind took off into like fantasizing about sex and stuff like that, which when it wasn't before. She was already sexually active, so she had already been with 2 or 3 guys before me, and this is 7th grade. So, yes, what she had, I took on too through sexual intercourse. Mm-hmm. So, if you guys can you give me some soul ties examples? Or some signs.
We had a big after I introduced her to drugs, because that's basically what was going on. So she moved in with me in Austin, and I had been taking shrooms, LSD, cocaine, Molly, weed. Molly, we all of that, right? And so I was like, man, I didn't realize at the moment that like when you do psychedelics or anything like that, and you start to get like profound thoughts and revelations about the world, you're fellowshipping with demons. They came from heaven too. They know the same knowledge. They just give it to you a different way, and they require you to keep taking that drug to keep getting those revelations. So I was in my mind, I was a guru. I was like, ride that wave, bro. You gotta ride that thing. Dude, you just gotta live life, man. It's all about love, man. I was in Austin, so that's how it was. Yeah. So Mariah got introduced to it with me, and What was the question?
Yeah, what were some signs?
And so we started to, start having we were having sex during this time, and the big soul tie is that I started to lose my identity. Like, it got so toxic to the point where I didn't know who I was in the relationship. I had never been depressed before in my life, and I took on some of the spirits that she had carried with her, and she took on some of them that I carry with me. Like, I can't really pinpoint because they were my spirits, the ones that she grabbed, but I know I grabbed depression, like, heavy. I grabbed anxiety heavy. Like, did you suffer from social anxiety? Yeah, I had never suffered from social anxiety in my life. I'm a very enthusiastic person. So I started to get around people and started to wonder, like, should I put my arm this way or should I put my arm this way? Should I drink now or drink when they drink? Like, just thoughts, bro. Like, I would trip, bro. I was like, all right, I gotta make sure I get this rotation right when they pass the blunt. Like, that's kind of stuff that I never really thought about before. I was real careless about. I was real confident. We just living life. We just vibing with each other. And so those are the kinds of like spirits that I would take on from being in the house. Like, we would a soul tie is like a devil's version of marriage. And what takes place is, instead of unity, more instruments of division build instead of unity building in a soul tie. So, like, bitterness and unforgiveness were like on 10, and we would get into like yelling matches and push each other and shove one another, and it got so bad to the point where I was like, we're gonna have to leave. Like, this is not healthy. But for some reason, whenever we understood that the relationship was so bad and we had to get out of it, but for some reason, something just kept us together, and it's what the soul tie is. That's what the soul tie is. The soul tie keeps it together until the point of destruction. And this is how you get relationships that grow into domestic abuse, where at one point both people were never like that, but they just stayed and stayed and stayed, and it built and built and built. And then you can never get rid of the unforgiveness or bitterness because you have no Holy Spirit to clean you out. You have no mechanism of peace because you don't know God. And we didn't know God. We just knew shrooms. And so, yeah, that's my interpretation of a soul tie specifically.
You thought we stayed together because of the soul tie?
I thought we stayed together. I thought the soul tie is what kept us together, but the Lord had ordained us to be together. But I think He might have, I don't know, taken advantage of that soul tie. Because soul tie, that's what soul ties do.
I never heard you say that before. I just didn't know that. I definitely believe in soul ties. So I guess the question about soul ties, it doesn't have to be just a sexual interaction with someone. You can actually it can begin with an emotional soul tie. So I had soul ties with my family members. I had a soul tie with my dad. People that you cling on to for, even I think when someone becomes your idol, for like safety. Even for me, that was one. If I would connect with someone and that made me feel safe, you can build a soul tie. And I guess I'll just explain for people watching. Yeah, it's really like if an unhealthy connection with someone, and when I mean unhealthy, it is what we're talking about, the exchange of spirits.
Right.
So gossip turns into, now you're exchanging anger together, and like, oh my gosh, I have a feeling, I know that something's wrong with this other person. You might have a soul tie. If you have a hard time, you're always thinking about someone, there's a high chance you have a soul tie with them. If you're always dreaming about someone, high chance there's a soul tie there. So anyway, so I had a soul tie with different family members, and I had an ex-boyfriend that was like 4 years on and off, and he had cheated on me, and so that was also a soul tie because of my man pleasing and wanting to connect, because of my issue with my dad. A lot of the boyfriends I had, there were soul ties that I had to break, and I had a relationship with a woman at one point when we were in high school still, before I was kicked out of the house, and that was again because of my issue with my dad, that I didn't trust women. I mean, that I didn't trust men, and so that was probably one of the most difficult soul ties for me to break off, because when you open a door, especially with same sex, it's very hard to shut that door, because certain demonic entities are stronger than others, you know. Yeah, period. I mean, some are stronger than others. Just like pornography is a very strong stronghold. It's a difficult spirit to break off from. So anyway, same thing with same sex. And so, yeah, that was my soul ties that started with, for me, I'm thinking the youngest was probably most likely with my dad, and then through my different relationships, different partners that I had. Obviously with Bishop, for me, I didn't know about soul ties specifically and breaking those until I moved here and started going through deliverance, and then the Lord revealed that to me, and he had me start writing down everyone that I had had sex with, and then from there, all right, now let's go deeper.
We both did that.
And he started revealing, okay, now it's not just the people you had sex with. It's deeper than that. There's more people that you have to break off soul ties with.
Dude, so if you confide in someone, let's say a friend, or let's say Bishop, or let's say your dad, let's say if your relationship is different, if you always wanted advice, you go to your dad. You always need someone to talk to, go to your dad. Would you say, when does that then become unhealthy?
That's a good question. I think that's where the Lord has to show you boundaries. I know, everyone individually, yeah, Bishop will probably have a different answer, but individually with relationships, God shows us boundaries, right? So looking at God's covenant and God's order, it's God first. Right, and then covenant, which for me is marriage, and then my child, and then ministry, right? And so you go down this order. So that's one answer. So it should be God first, and then my husband. If we had discussed a long time ago when we started dating, to us, cheating was if I had an emotional cheating with someone else, because that's what it starts with, right? And so if I was going to someone else, if I had a lot going on emotionally and I never went to my husband, confiding in someone else, that to us was cheating. And so you just think about that with God the Father, right? You can easily, someone can become an idol. It's beautiful to have a healthy relationship with your parents, but if you're always running to your parents for acceptance, I think there's a certain age, especially, once you're 18, or even after you're through your 20s, you start to transfer from being a child to being a friend, and we are to honor our parents forever, right? We honor, but the Lord shows us through honoring, where there's now a transition of, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I'll receive your wisdom, but I still have to learn and do what the Lord tells me to do. And so if I'm always seeking approval from my parents, even through, now I have a marriage, but I'm still going to my parents for approval, it can turn unhealthy, and it can become an idol.
Anything.
I think that's good. I think that was really good, especially when you talked about approval. I also think that whenever you talk about having to go to your parents for wisdom, it's good as long as that's the covering you're under, because God will honor that structure. So if that's the covering you're under, but as soon as you're not under your father anymore, then it's a dilemma with idolatry. Because once that was your wisdom, God is now trying to get you to develop a relationship with him. You got me? He wants to get you to a place where it doesn't matter what trial you're going through, you're depending on God. And so if God ends up, after you go to him, if God ends up bringing you that person, then you're doing it right. But if he does not bring you that person, he brings you another one, he can speak to you through anybody. Even somebody who's not even in close relationship with him will drop wisdom that specifically applies to your current problem, your current situation. And it's all because you were obedient to God that he revealed that information through whoever it was or whatever situation you might see. Sometimes God will speak to me through a sign on a driveway or something, and it'll be the exact word I need to trigger whatever I need to trigger for an understanding to take place, for me to go through whatever I need to go through correctly. And so that's just how I see it. Like, once you start to depend on God, it doesn't matter who it is. He gonna bring somebody, or he's going to give you the answers somehow, some way, but you will be able to understand it. He will give it to you in a way that you'll understand it, and it'll be the most impactful way. If you substitute an impactful understanding from God for something that you're comfortable with, like a go-to, like your dad, then you'll get, first of all, you won't get Holy Spirit advice, because it's not meant for him to give you that advice. You've gone out of order, and you might get the wrong advice. Like, whenever you go to somebody and it's outside of God, the advice that is yielded to you comes from their own experiences and their own brokenness. So at a point where your dad might not have ever dealt with lust, and you do, he's gonna give you his experience, and he might have dealt with depression. So it's completely off. It's a completely off advice. It doesn't even apply to what you're dealing with. And so you might try to apply a depression situation to your lustful situation, all because that's your dad's advice, and you'll be further down in confusion when God knows exactly what you're going through. That's kind of how I see it.
When you replace anything, like, for me, when I experienced my first heartbreak in friendship, right? That was the most pivotal. Well, probably also when I quit football too, but that was a pivotal point in my life, because for the first time, I had to experience what everybody was talking about when it's just you and God in those seasons, that lonely season. I've never experienced a lonely season before, but when that friend was like, look, I don't want to be your friend no more, it felt like, okay, I'm in the wilderness now. It's just me and the Lord. Yeah. And I'm not even gonna sugarcoat nothing. Like if you never experienced it, and you realize, like, dang, it's just me and God right now. Like, for me, I was like, I don't want just me. I need somebody else. I need to invite somebody else in. Another friend. I got, you and me. That's uncomfortable. I'm not liking it, because you have to acknowledge and deal with the fact that, okay, you have made an idol out of somebody, or you have, like you said, emotional assault out with somebody, and and when going to school and seeing those people, walking past them, like, it's like you don't say nothing to each other. It's like, dang, like, hey, we got history together, like, and you don't even speak, so
That's tough.
Yeah.
Was it a girl or boy?
It was girls and boys.
Dang.
Yeah, but the first one was a girl, but it was two of my best friends, quote unquote, was girls.
The Lord just shutting the door.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part about it, because I've never seen a sign of, like, God, why? Like, you just, and I think and sometimes I'm glad that God don't tell us why all the time. Because it's just sometimes it's just good for us to not know everything,
Yeah, it is good for us not to know.
So,
he's trying to sit down, but it says up.
So yeah, I can acknowledge that I had to acknowledge that I had emotional soul tie with a lot of my friends, and I wanted to keep them. I wanted to hold them on, and I just couldn't let them go. So
yeah.
Ooh, God.
Yeah.
Lord. So, what shifted you and Mariah? Cause y'all were married when y'all came to Savannah.
No.
Okay. The first time I met Mariah and Bishop was in church. I think it was on youth night, I believe. So what shifted y'all to Savannah? What sparked interest coming to Savannah? I know you say you grew up here, but what was the the turning point? Like, okay, we need to move down here.
Oh, I'll tell you that right now.
Go, let me go.
So We're on camera, so do you want to go?
Yeah. So in 2019 or 2020, whenever COVID happened, we were coming to visit Bishop's family for 4th of July. And when we came for 4th of July to visit, I had heard the Lord clearly for the first time in a long time. And he said, stay.
Ooh.
Period.
Just one simple word.
Stay. And I was staying longer. I was going to spend more time here, and Bishop was going to go back early because he had to go back to the hospital for work. That was just the plan, and then we were going to drive back home together. But when I heard the Lord stay, I was like, okay. My craving for God, and all of a sudden, I heard my dad. I heard his voice. I know what he told me to do. I'm doing it. And so I invited myself to live with Bishop's parents. So that was my pivotal, what's crazy. So I started going through deliverance. The Lord was just like, it's like, you take a wrong turn in life, and all of a sudden, what you were, like, you get another opportunity. Mariah, do this. And it's like everything fast forwarded to, I don't even know how to explain it. It's all of a sudden revelation was flowing. Healing was flowing, breaking generational curses. Anyways, and so I told Bishop, hey, I'm moving in with your parents. I'm staying here. He's like, what are you doing? Right? He was like, what in the world? And when he finally was like, all right, you really are staying there. I'm going to have to, like, come out there.
That's my part.
Okay, I'll say that. We had to go back to Austin where he had been living and get all our things and move back. That, for me, you're talking about a pivotal point, right? So I had gone through, I've been here for a few months, living with his parents, doing the things. And my big first test was going back to Austin with Bishop. And it's like all of a sudden I could feel this, I had really struggled for most of my life with suicide and thoughts of suicide, which I found out is a generational curse. It's happened to more than one family member. Anyways, and so all of a sudden I had these thoughts, and Bishop and I were fighting again. And it's like when it was a struggling weekend. When we got through that weekend and we're driving back to Savannah, I had Bishop with me. It was like, oh my gosh, we're stepping into the Lord's plan. Like, you just knew all this spiritual warfare in that weekend. And we knew going into the weekend, this is going to be hard. We could feel like, no, this is going to be, like, these tests are coming. The devil's going to come with everything that he has with us. But it still was difficult. That was a moment of, how do I explain it? It's like, stress. I know that I'm not going to go back to where I was. Like, there are moments where I'm like, you can take a step up and maybe you'll mess up a little, but I will not go back to where I was on that weekend, if that makes sense. Like, that was a huge, it's like your foundation, I guess that would be it. Like, your foundation is no longer on a valley. My foundation is now on a hill. Yeah. Did you want to go?
I hope he gets disgusted with bread. All right. All right. So, what pivotal moment? What's the question?
What led to the shifting to move to Savannah?
Her?
Your side. Yeah.
I didn't want to come, bro.
You want to come?
I did not want to come back home, man. I hated Savannah, dude. I grew up in Savannah.
I mean,
I had all the bad, like, memories about Savannah. So when I heard first time I heard her say, I'm supposed to be here, and she said it like so graceful. She looked like she was emaciated because she had been on like a 50-day something fast, 40-day fast. And I was on the phone with her, and it was just, I was like, oh Lord, she in there for real. Cause it was like a 40. I don't think she did a 40-day fast. Did you? You did a 40-day fast before I got there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "What is going on? You look different, girl. I can't believe."
Was it eating?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was no food.
Yeah. It hadn't been 40.
It was a juice fast.
Oh.
So I did use a juicer.
It didn't take me a month to get out there. So it wasn't 40 days. But she was like a good 3 weeks
You
in.
were gone for you didn't move. I had gone in July. You didn't end up moving there for a few months, August, September. I think
I wasn't.
till September, maybe 2 months. It took you 2 months to get out there.
2 months
to get your travel contract. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, she went on some 40-day fast, dude, and I just had been flabbergasted. I'm like, bro, what's going on? You might need to handle that over there. And I just had been so mad. But while I was by myself, I was going through spiritual warfare. I was going through porn. I was going through the Lord was tempting me. I mean, the devil was tempting me with the women in the hospital. It's as soon as she left, all that stuff started flooding in. People got more promiscuous at work. Just craziness. You know what I'm talking about, Finn? Okay, buddy. All right, hold on. Just give me a second. And so what prompted me to go over there was, after I had found a travel contract, I was like, I'm just finna go. And when I got there, bro, it's like the Lord was talking to me every minute. He was talking to me through Mariah, and then I went to church, and stuff had started clicking in church that I had never understood before. When he says you need to apply the Bible to your life in order to access God, you won't be able to access God unless you apply the word, the living word, which is the character of God, to your life. The character in the Bible, once you make that character your character, you start to access all of the benefits and blessings that God has for his people. Everybody wants God to show up in their life, the magical Moses stuff taking place in your life. Well, you don't do that unless you have God's character, and I had no idea that's how it needed to happen. And so I started reading the Bible. I started worshiping him. I started applying that stuff to my life, and I hit a whole new level of, oh my gosh. And then I met this dude online. I didn't meet him, but I came across him. His name is Isaiah Salvador. And I started seeing deliverance, and I was like, what demons? What is going on here? And I started to see people's personalities. People be yoked in spirits of fear and stuff like that. I was like, oh, nah, this is real. This is for real. I'm in this, and so from there, since it's real life, these things apply, these principles of demonic spirits and all that stuff applies to believers and non-believers. Right. It's just the fact that I didn't know about it. It was still going on though. And that's what made it real for me. Is that it ain't just when you tap into religion, you start to see, no, even when you outside of religion, these spirits still running rampant. They just got more control over you. So
y'all didn't experience the deliverance. I would say seeing people getting delivered by demons. You didn't see that until you came to Savannah. You wasn't aware of. No.
Once we got to Savannah, we started trying to do it to ourselves. No, but we weren't aware of it. No, okay. At all. No, none of that. It blew my mind. Yeah, I think it would have been worse if I was aware of it in Austin, because that's when I was doing all my drugs. Yeah. I would have gone crazy.
Actually, for me, when my parents had lightly talked about it, maybe a couple times. My mom had seen a deliverance; she was a part of one. Right. She had talked about it once, and she would talk to us about things spiritually, items can be cursed, even couches. So it's important to anoint your home. But when we were in Austin, again, we were, I had opened the door not just to drugs and that being a gateway to demonic entity, but I had done yoga for 15 years. Kundalini, balancing chakras. I started doing moon rituals, women rituals, and so I really opened the door to witchcraft while I still had a prayer closet.
I just thought it was
crazy
just stuff.
But
she had a coven.
So what type?
She had a few witches in that house.
What the Lord did, which was amazing, is towards the end of me smoking weed, within the last couple times that I did it, I started seeing spirits on people. when I was younger, I could see spirits, and I could see like lights around people.
Again, my man Bishop is fumbling and bumbling with the mic. What are you doing? We have an audience. I love you, bro, but stop.
While I'm smoking weed, I could see these demonic spirits on someone smiling back at me. And it scared me so much that I was like, I gotta stop.
Oh,
I
on
knew,
weed, right?
Because what happens is when people get into witchcraft, I almost say, okay, good, because they're gonna find Jesus at the end of it. Whatever your sin is, at the end of your sin, in the full manifestation, is either death or Jesus.
Right.
And so when people are seeking the supernatural, it's because the church often is dead and doesn't have the supernatural anymore. Yeah. And so I think it's actually a very, it's in us to want to see the supernatural, because that's what a part of what he called us to do. You will do greater things than me. Raise the sick, right? Heal the sick, raise the dead.
I noticed that.
Anyways, so that's where that drawing in me was. I'm yearning for something extra. Yeah. I was looking for it in the wrong place. So.
If you're not like, and that's the way we were created. Like, we were created to worship God, but because we're not taught, or because we weren't introduced to God, every human being craves something spiritual. You may go into witchcraft, or you may go into Judaism. You may worship statues. It's that desire to work. Yeah, it's that desire to be connected to something supernatural, and that's the God. But God is misrepresented nowadays. So a lot of people don't believe. But yes, that was great. So what? Like I said, I first met y'all in Keno Life. How did y'all get to Keno Life?
Bishop's sister and I were really. The Lord, it was funny. I was in a wilderness season for sure, and the Lord, in this beautiful season of the wilderness, he was Bishop. Can you get sit here? You wanna? In this season, he would tell me where to go and when to go, right? Like just supernatural evangelism type stuff. And so Bethany and I would go to Forsyth Park pretty frequently and talk to people. I actually did a deliverance in Forsyth. Right. And we met Miss Kelly. Do you remember Miss Kelly?
Miss Kelly, yeah.
Yes, and Mr. Jason. And so we met them. Bishop and I met them. And Bethany went to KLM first, Bishop's sister. And she's like, you need to come to this church. And one day she's like, hey, there's a pastor conference. Do you want to come with me? And I was like, yes. And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, no, I don't know if I should go. And she's like, the first answer is the Lord. The second one is always, is the enemy. And so we show up an hour late. This is when, Miles was still, right? He's the prophet. Yeah. Miles was still there doing prophecy sometimes. Anyways, so that's the first time I went to KLM. And when I walked in the door, it was for the first time in my whole life. Again, remember, I moved a lot my whole life. I never knew it. Like, I always craved home, but I never, had one besides my family being home. It was the first time I stepped into a building, and it was, the Lord said, this is your home. And I looked at some of the visions that Jean had put up, and some of them I had seen before. Like, those are things the Lord revealed to me, and I'm like, okay, God, this is crazy. And so we went through there, and that's where I had a deliverance there as well. And so I went there a couple times, and then Bishop started coming. Okay. Thank you. No, yeah, he just asked about us. When did we get to KLM?
You done?
Yeah.
So, you guys be at KLM. We go on a trip together. We go to King Jesus. Just what did that trip do? If you guys can remember, what did that trip do for y'all individually, together?
Do you want to go first, and then I'll go? I don't care. That was a crazy one. Yeah. I'll say that. Because I was supposed to go to my mom's birthday. Her 50th birthday. It was the first time my family and all of me and all my sisters, their husbands were coming. We had never gotten together like that. And I knew that I knew God said, you're not going. We had the money to go. And I'm like, Bishop, I'm going to go because God had told me. And so it's like, I don't know, a week before the conference, Miss Kelly had told us about it. Hey, you should go to this conference. Ryan's going. We knew who Ryan was at that time. We had just spent time with him. And God said, this is why. Literally, it was even like they're both in Florida. My family was going to like Disneyland. And again, remember, I just went through all this deliverance and I like stepped away from witchcraft. I used to be a huge Harry Potter fan. But because I opened the door to so much witchcraft, I can't even watch Harry Potter anymore. When you open a door, right? Like and because I got into just same thing with addiction, my boundaries to protect my heart are really high. I have to. Anyways, so the Lord said, this is why. And so I call my mom a week before. It sounds horrible. And I'm like, hey, I have to tell you, we can't come to your birthday. And before I call her, God said, don't say sorry that you can't come, because you're not sorry for being obedient to me. You're sorry that you said yes and you're going against your word, but it's the obedience to me, right? So I'm like, hey, I'm not coming. And I'm sorry that I said I would. And she said, Mariah, before you called, God already told me. And she said, he reminded me yesterday, the night before, that when you were a baby, you were prophesied that you were going to be an evangelist to the nations. And we thought you would be worldwide. He said, here is the nations. Savannah is the nations. Our country is the nation. Like, this is where, Bishop, baby, do you need help? So he told her that the night before. Hi, baby. He had told her that night before, so that was a huge confirmation for me, for both of us. So that was a huge, beautiful trip. Yeah. And that's too. Bishop and I had been saving money for our wedding at that time. Again, I'm living with his parents. He had been doing a travel contract, and so when we moved here, I mean, even before we moved here, again, it was on my heart not to have sex, and I just kept messing up. Period. But when we came into agreement, okay, let's really not do this.
Right.
When we moved here, we're like, all right, let's not have sex, right? And we're saving money now for our wedding. And we had like $12,000 saved.
We gave away $11,000
when we went to King Jesus Ministry.
Okay.
God said, give it all away.
Wow.
That was such a test of faith to him. We're like, I looked at Bishop, he said no. And I was like,
if you remember,
no.
I don't know if you remember, but Pastor Josue opened up the first day. He opened up talking about sowing the seed. I don't know if you remember, but he talked about sowing the seed, how, you know, he had to give it all. God told him to give it all away. And it was like, you know, for me, I'd be like, man, God, whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it, no problem. But when he tells you to do it, and it's like, your spirit is always willing, but the flesh is just...
Yes. You think about, like, what was hard is we're living at your parents'. We're trying to save money for a wedding.
Right.
So we can live to, like, get out of here. And you're like, God, you want... And I had already... Let me give you even more background. When I moved here and we went to Austin, God said, get rid of everything. I'm talking, like, all my clothes, all my books, everything I got rid of. When I moved here, even my car. I sold my car. And so you're at this point. You already started over. Like, God, what? And then Bishop, that was a test for him as well. Of like, I've been working so hard. How in the world are we going to pay for a wedding? But we did. He ended up, thank you, Jesus. Our wedding was paid for, and we all debt free as well. It's crazy.
Oh, God, excuse me.
And it was even one of those, like, I don't know if you ever struggled with this. I'm like, oh, a mega church. Where I'm like, great, we're at a mega church. I don't know, you just like question things. Every time the Lord really humbles me of like David saying, I will not touch God's anointed. Let me tell you that. The fear of the Lord, when he reveals that to you, do not touch my anointed. Every time I like judged, oh, it's a mega church or this person I don't really know, he will always humble me and say, Mariah, touch not my anointed. And then he reveals his glory and power. And so that was one of those weekends of where like, okay, you kind of question, all right, Lord, I know you brought us here, but you see this mega church, even people talking about offering, you know, but you do it out of obedience, not because of people and because they told you to, only because God told you to.
It's nothing
yeah.
like if you can imagine, if I can imagine heaven, it's nothing like when you walk into a church and you see thousands of people giving their life to Christ or worshiping in sync. I was like, this has to be what heaven
Right,
is like.
right.
I mean, like, I was like, man, like I just came, like we just came from Cap, and you know when you see people running to the altar to give their life to Christ, all the way from the back of the church, they come in, gotta push their way through the crowd just to give their life to Jesus. It made me weep because I'm like, God, like, how in the world, you know?
Right.
And I mean, these people from all over the world, you know. So it wasn't just. It's crazy because it was mostly like it's mostly a Hispanic based church. But when these events, everybody comes: white America, black people, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese, everywhere. So seeing young kids, Saphir age, my sister's age, my younger sister's age, give their life to Christ. I was like, wow. So definitely.
Yeah,
So
it's amazing.
okay, well, last thing we talk about
Bishop.
the process of getting married. Like, how was that wedding, that day of getting married? How did that feel?
Oh my gosh. We can take turns, but it was the glory of God. The wedding day itself, it was the glory of God. Just I know that before I went down the aisle, before I had seen my dad, I'm in this room, the stylist, the photographers, Kiki had just left, and I have this moment by myself for the first time before my two dads come to get me, and all of a sudden I see Jesus come into the room, kneel down in front of me, and take my hand, and I started crying. It was just so beautiful, just this moment with him and I. And then my dad comes into the room after all these 10 years of not speaking to someone. So it was just after 10 years, yeah. And so it was, I know that probably to other people is not perfect, but for us, there's just so much glory and peace. It was in December and it was supposed to be raining, but we had people praying. I just kept declaring it's going to be nice out. And everything about the wedding, God just kept putting it into place. Right. To our wedding planner, to the cake, to the venue, all these things. He just kept aligning everything and putting it into a place and revealing because we actually wanted to elope. We were good.
We're going to go to Bali.
Get married. We're going to go to Bali. We had a plan, and God said, I want you to have a wedding. And looking back, it's because he wanted people to witness what he had done in our lives. He wanted us to witness him bringing people together for us. Right. I just thought my family would not show up, just because they didn't have money. But they made a way. My family showed, you know what I mean? So he was the one that brought people together. He was the one that people that, again, you think of my dad and my mom who were divorced, people that have not been in a room together in over 10 years, just supernatural people being brought together because of God. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience. Your little sister was our flower girl.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
She was?
Wiley.
Did you feel for the first time?
What's that?
Did you feel freedom when you married Mariah? Did you feel like, okay, now?
I don't know if I felt freedom, bro. I felt responsibility.
Oh, there was definitely a spiritual shift. When you're married now, I felt a huge, something just shifted spiritually.
What?
Even going to your prayer closet.
I just felt more of. You can feel more presence, more weight, in a sense. That's kind of what I felt, man. It just my responsibility as a man just grew. It's not just I'm in love with Jesus. It's I have a covenant now under Jesus. I need to look like Jesus, so that he can look like Jesus. You got me? I need to be the man I want my son to be. I need to be the man to build my wife. I have to I have to sharpen my iron with her every day. And it's a blessing. I would say it's nothing but a blessing. But if you don't, I guess, uphold your position, it can look like a curse. But if you stay obedient to the people God has given you, like, the only reason I'm working right now is for them.
Take care of your family.
Yeah. The only reason I be working as hard is for them. And so it really does change your ambitions. It changes your goals.
What was the wedding like for you, Bishop?
The wedding was amazing. I got a chance to witness to her father, the one that's going through stuff. And I got to see a version of him that a lot of people have a lens about, that don't get to see like a pure version of him. Like, he broke down in front of me, and I think that was the honest I've seen him, period. I've only seen him a few times, but when he broke down, there were no words with his tears. It was just that look in his eyes, like, one, I'm in bondage, I need help, free me. You know, that whole Matrix thing.
Yeah.
And then the other one was you just saw the years the enemy took from his life in his eyes, especially when he broke down. He's like, I'm tired. Like, you could just see the spirits on him. That's kind of how I'm expressing it.
Yeah.
And you could see the battles he's fought, like the suicidal thoughts he's had but hadn't told anybody about. Like, suicide ran in that family, and it ran on his side.
Right.
And you know, it primarily, you can see it in the women, but the men we never talk about like our stuff, but it's in us too. And I could see it all in his eyes, dude. And so it was just a powerful moment I had with him. Like, I got to hug him, witness to him, talk to him about the Lord, and we just had a mutual respect for one another. And that whole wedding was amazing to me, honestly. People that don't even know the Lord started crying. We had no alcohol at the wedding.
Well.
We had no alcohol at the wedding. So people come for like the alcohol and the food, but they just started to have a good time, man. The presence of the Lord was there, and everybody loved it. So
Wait for it to cool down.
that was it.
Speaking of the fear, did y'all had a desire to have children?
Not before I was married. No, I didn't want to be married or have children. But God, in summary, God revealed my heart's desire.
Right.
He told me to get married, and then told me to have a child, and he was just revealing, Ryan, I'm telling you because this is what you actually want.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just didn't know.
Yes.
Okay. So is there any leading closing? Is there any advice you want to give to married couples or young kids or young adults? Is there anything you feel led to say or would like to say?
Any advice to married couples?
Married couples, newly wedded couples, or couples married for years. You know,
Remember your testimony.
remember your testimony.
Yes.
Remember your testimony.
That one's huge. That's what the devil comes for.
Yes.
Remember when the days suck.
Yeah.
Remember your testimony. Remember, Jesus said, I know where I came from and I know where I'm going. And so when the days are the worst, know where you came from and where God I know I wanted to kill myself. I was in a bathroom, locked myself in I know where I came from. I know where he pulled me from. I know that he confirmed that Bishop is my husband. And so when days suck, that's the foundation, what he did for me.
Right.
The partner you have might not always be the partner you want, but they're the one given to you, and they're the partner you need. And by that I mean the person given to you is meant to. You're just as much for them as they are for you, but y'all are meant for each other's development. Like, God has a plan for both of you, and in order for you to become the woman you need to be, or the man you need to be, he's giving you the wife that may that may not be perfect, like your perfect version of how you expect her to be, but her ailments and everything you think is wrong with her is meant to perfect you, right? So if you struggle with patience, He's going to give you a wife that is going to help to build that patience, put you in moments that require that patience. And it might look, it might look wonky. She might just be nagging you for the day, but it's ordained because the Lord is trying to develop you as a man. And the only way for that to happen is for Him to give you an instrument that requires the things that you lack. I hope that makes sense. I can't ask you if that makes sense because I don't know you. And so vice versa for the woman, man. So the things that they will be perfected. Like your partner will not always have whatever problems you think they have, especially once you start giving it to the Lord. Like you start speaking to things that are not as though they were. Like even though you see them lazy, you don't refer to them as lazy, so they don't identify as lazy. Because we become what we think, that whole dynamic. And you start to speak to the opposite of the identity that they're showing. And it starts to grow you as a person. It helps you to operate in the kingdom of God. And it helps you to build your partner simultaneously. Like, just remember, you have the partner you need to develop you into the man or woman you're meant to be. And it's not always going to look perfect.
Amen. Well, that ends today's episode. I appreciate Bishop and Mariah so much. I love them very much. And it's friends, it's relationships like this that you got two people in your corner, or you got one person in your corner. If that person believes in Jesus, serve Jesus, that's really all. That's really, other than Jesus, all the people you need. You can cut out all the people from the world, because they don't matter. I mean, in this sense, like they're not gonna take you anywhere, But these type of people will. So I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all. I love y'all, and I hope you guys enjoy this video. Peace.